Okay. Be our guest. So I'm not usually a big quote person, but Walt Disney had a lot of quotes, and this one actually has a lot of meaning to what you guys do in this volatile business of ours. We can ill afford to rest our laurels, even to pause in retrospect. Times and conditions change so rapidly that we must keep our aim constantly focused on the future. And he was a bit of a visionary. He was the Steve Jobs of that time, Walt Disney. We'll touch on him very briefly because I really want to get to the heart of things. But he was very forward-thinking, and you'll see in a couple of these slides how ahead of the curve he was. And that's part of business, and in the remodeling business, and the closet business, and the cabinetry business, and green environment. You always have to kind of be ahead of the curve. So that's him. That's Walt Disney. That's Mickey Mouse, in case you don't know. Okay. What will be covered in this CEO? We'll briefly talk about who Walt Disney World was and what made him so special, because in order to know how to best do customer service, you have to kind of understand the concept. And then the magic starts with the cast. This is kind of a unique thing to Disney. Disney doesn't call their employees. Their mentality is to call them cast. It's a production. And I'm not saying that you should call all of your employees cast, but I think the perception is that you should think of them as your cast in one big production. Taking care of your guests or clients. If you think of them as clients, you're gonna have that perception of clients. But if you think of them as guests, as if they came to your house and you wanted to offer them a drink, then it will help you in your perception of how you're going to be able to help them. Practical applications to setting your attractions apart. Attractions in Disney World are the rides. In your case, it's the services that you provide. So what makes K&M, stand out from, all the other general contractors in the area, and so on and so forth. And then we'll do a group sing-along, led by Janet Stevenson. Maybe. We'll have the big finish, and we'll do a Q&A. And why there will be 7 things covered in this CEU? Because, there's 7 dwarfs. So everything is Disney related. Okay. Walt Disney, we briefly talked about. He was born in 1901, died in 1966, so he died relatively young for the amount of stuff that he accomplished. Things that you can't even, you can't even really conceptualize. He was not only an animator or producer, and he gave a lot of money, but in my opinion, and strictly, this whole presentation is my opinion, he was one of the greatest innovators of our time. The whole Disney brand is $80 billion. It's a Fortune 500 company. I don't really need to tell you. Everything is branded with it. One of the smart things about it, we'll talk about the movies in a second, is that they have several different things that are incorporated with Disney. We know that there's Disney World, which we'll talk a little bit about. And within Disney World, there's several different theme parks. But then there's a Disney World in Paris. There's one in Hong Kong. And then they have a whole cruise line and Disney Destinations, which is relatively new. And of course, they have the networks, ABC, ESPN, Family, Disney Channel, books, interactive, merchandise, which you'll see in a second what some of the merchandise looks like, and movies. Started with Bambi, Dumbo, Lion King, Aladdin, all those different movies. All right, $47 million. This is $47 million. $47 million. It's actually not dollars, just number, $47 million. For a very dandy prize. Does anybody know what that number represents?
Number of visitors to one of his sites.
Number of visitors to Disney World. That is very good. And lucky for you today, I'm giving out prizes.
I'm not wearing the hat.
Ready? Uh-oh. Oh, sorry. Hopefully I break
Broke
it.
your
Did
pride.
I break it?
Nope. We're good.
Sorry.
Is it
Thank you.
$47 million a year?
My favorite.
$47 million a year. They didn't break it, because I have others.
No, we're good.
For other right answers, of course. People are traveling to Disney World each year, which is phenomenal if you think about it. 47 million, that's 2/3 the population of the United Kingdom. It's a lot of people. It all began with a vision. This is the thing that mesmerizes me from a business perspective, is that when you look at something like this, this isn't for a mug, this is just a general perception. What is this, and what do you see with this? This as a, I'm saying
I see you. It's the Everglades.
Yeah, it's the Everglades.
That's the swamplands in Florida before they started Disney World.
So here's something Everglades. Yes, you don't get a prize for that, but that's basically what it is. There'll be other chances for prizes. In 1960s, this is what Walt Disney saw. You know, he came and sold swampland and basically said, you know what looked good right there? You know, the Carousel of Progress, you know, Space Mountain, you know, Small World. It'd be great to have a theme park where you can take your kids right in the middle of Orlando. Now, obviously, you know, it was a calculated move. You knew that Florida was a warm weather destination, there wasn't going to be too much rain, you know, that it was pretty easy for people to come into, you know, all those things went into consideration. But it's not like he looked at a building like you might see and say, you know what, I can see that a cabinet would go perfectly there, or a patio would go there, this would be great for a closet. I mean, that's a skill within itself. But then look at you know, 47 square miles and building a theme park. As you can see, that big white ball is Epcot, and that's what it looks like now. This is pre-1966. 47 square miles, which is the size of San Francisco, basically, is what he sold. He sold San Francisco and said, let's put a theme park and resort there, and purchased it for $1.5 million, which I think we can all agree is a pretty good investment. Alright, so now we kind of give a history of Disney and his visionary.
Who
We're
owned
gonna,
it?
I'm sorry?
Who owned that property?
It was some holding company. I forget who they are off the top of my head, but it was just some land development company. And the interesting thing about it is that he did it secretly. Before Disney World was actually Disneyland, which was a little bit easier because there's only one theme park, and it's sort of his beta type. So he did Disneyland, it worked out pretty well. But he said, what if I could do something bigger and broader? And people knew who he was because he was a great animator and he was a worldwide personality. So one of the most magnificent things of it is that he secretly purchased it. He had secret little project names for it. He would fly out there in a private jet because he didn't want people to know what he was doing because he didn't want to give out his secrets and his ideas.
Did he get any grief from an environmental standpoint with the wetlands and all?
Possibly. I know you got your environmental hat on there. I don't think that was as big.
Probably not in the 60s.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
they were as big there, you know, in the 60s, the environmental movement. But I'm sure there were, like with anything, you know, I'm sure
It
there's...
would be interesting to...
I mean, think about it. Wherever you build, if you build a stadium, all the residents are going to complain there's going to be noise violations. Whatever you do, this is why they have permits. I'm sure he went through the right channels, and I'm sure there was a lot of red tape, but he's Walt Disney. He was able to do what he wanted. So how to cast your production. Okay, so we were talking about how great it is to be a client experience. We talked about Walt Disney as the visionary, but it all starts with your cast, which is your employees. I can't say this enough, and you know, I'm not one to talk badly about other past experiences, but I think we've all been there where we've had jobs that we just didn't get along with the boss. Thankfully, I have one right now I'm getting along with the boss, which is good. But there have been times where I've worked on in companies where the team was not working together. There's no uniformity, there's no camaraderie.